Hi, it's Jeff Cohen from the Florida Healthcare Law Firm. Another Healthcare Disruptors episode. This time we've got an amazing entrepreneur and, more importantly, a fantastic guy, Tim Sawyer. Can't wait to chat with him. I'm so happy to be with you, man.
Great to be here, buddy. I appreciate it.
You know,
Wouldn't miss it for the world.
The fun part is, the doorway to so many of these things is business,
Yep.
But that's not the most important thing, and it's not the most rewarding thing, and it's not the most compelling thing. I think for me, for our guests, or for even the listeners, it's the personal shit,
Yeah.
It's like finding out who the person is. And to me, that's the most fulfilling thing.
Right.
So when I meet you, I know you through business, but I feel you as a human being, and I know the impact that you're having in life, not just in business. You've changed people's lives. You've changed industries. Yeah, you're one of the founders of Faster Outcomes, and you're one of the founders of many companies that have soared and that you've exited. But you're a mission guy. You're a mission guy. You're a values guy.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's what resonates most for me with you. You're another man who's claimed by a vision, who serves a mission, and it's much bigger than you. Am I capturing it?
It is a couple things you mentioned that I'd like to speak to, and the idea that you meet on a professional level and then you establish a deeper connection. For me, it's actually a little different. It's almost like when I meet someone and start talking to them, regardless of what their station in life is, their socioeconomic status, there's a connection that develops. And it doesn't take a long time with me. It's funny. Now that can go one of two ways, right?
It could go south.
Could go south pretty quick. But it's interesting how you meet people, and you're one of those people. I was in your orbit 5-10 minutes, and I knew immediately, I'm like, this is someone you could spend time with. And as our friendship grows, I also know we could not be around each other for 3 years. Sit down right here, pick up right where we left off. And those are the kind of people that I like to have in my life. And what's interesting as it relates to business, I end up gravitating towards those people in business. So I'm going to think it's the flip. It's like I get to know them as a human, and then I'm like, and now I want to do business with that guy.
Right.
And so, and when you say mission, my mission, when I do meet people in life and enter into these partnerships, I have this thing that I do. The mission becomes, I have to serve this. I have to put this person, leave them in a better spot than where I found them, physically, mentally, financially. And I take that on as the mission. It's the people.
Where's it coming from? Tell me about where you got that.
I have a definitely high protector, provider, skills. That's really important to me. And I have a really unhealthy, healthy sense of, I don't want to let people down. I just don't want to let people down. And I know, sometimes it can come across in business that I'm hyper-focused on the mission, but it's not the mission itself. It's what the mission provides. It provides economic upward mobility. It provides sustainability. It provides community. It provides healthcare. It provides the things that we need in everyday life. And if you're not hyper-focused on the mission, in addition to all the problems you have, you also don't have money.
Yeah.
So, and when money is needed, little else will suffice in a business. So then those relationships break down, right? And so the people are the mission, and I just really don't want to let people down. And whether that's employees, my own wife, who I feel a strong sense of that I want to take care of her, right? That means a lot to me. My children, who are all old and successful, I still have bedrooms named after them in my home. They've moved out for many years. And so I have a strong sense of that I just really don't want to let people down. And as it relates to customers too. And, in this space I'm at right now with Faster Outcomes, the initial round of customers are friends.
Yeah.
And that is not lost on me.
Right. Right.
That is not lost on me. And so, putting a lot of political capital at risk to say to someone, I got you.
Yeah.
I know we don't have all the answers today, but I got you. And for that person to know, they could look me in the eye and go, you know what? I believe that.
When I was a young guy and I was married and I had 3 small kids and, I was focused on providing, what have I got to do to provide? And so my relationships and my interactions with people were really kind of through that filter of what have I got to do to provide for my family? And at some point, I think it coincided with age. When I turned about 50, shit changed, like how you're different at 30, you're different at 40, you're different at 50. And at 50, it'd be just this compelling need, not desire, need to give everything that had been given to me. And inexplicable. There's no book, there was no lecture, there's no nothing. It's like, oh, that's what time it is.
Right.
And so then my whole life became just evolutionarily, in the algorithm of becoming a human being, just became the service, the joy of being with people that have compatible values and a compatible mission. And so I used to tell Autumn, my business partner and founder and dear friend, I said, all I want to do is great shit with great people.
Yeah.
That's all I want to do. That's how I want to spend the rest of my life. That's
awesome.
how I articulated it,
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so you're doing that. You're doing it.
Trying.
Yeah. But when did that come online for you? Did that come online for you when you were 20, when you were 30? How did you ripen into that?
So I think without going into the whole story, teenage years weren't great for me. Worse than not good. And not going the whole story. And so I feel like I let a lot of people down early in life.
Yeah.
And of course, my parents being primary. And it took a journey to get back to where I was productive, right?
Yeah.
An integrated, productive member of society again. I lost some time. And so that stuck with me. And, people talk about hitting rock bottom. I don't really believe in that per se, but I do believe I got to a place where I was like, I'm never doing that again. I'm never, ever going to create a self-inflicted wound where I have to look someone in the eye that I love and say, I fucked up.
It's an amazing story. It's an amazing lesson. And I think that when I have conversations like this, it is the man's story of confronting the challenge, the wound, the fucking it up.
Yeah.
And then you find this amazing doorway to wonder and delight and love and service and power and humility. And you find it because you started off with the flip side, this horrible, selfish, self-centered, self-absorbed state
100%.
of mind,
One thing I want to go back to too, I think, because having gone through that experience, people always say, well, how is it that, look at what you're doing now? And particularly in business, I think the one thing that I learned was if you just have to take full responsibility. So if you look at people who have gone through challenges in life, the reason they repeat those challenges is because they'll point to circumstances. And let's say, well, the reason that happened to me is because this was going on in my family, my whatever, external circumstances, right? And if you live in those external circumstances, you never get liberated. Ever. And so I think that the big life's lesson, if I wanted to share anything, if anybody cares about what I have to say, is just own it.
Yeah.
Don't just say, yeah. No one forced me to do anything. I did it. I'm sorry. And and that's it. Because now I'm liberated.
Yeah.
What can you say to me that I didn't say to myself?
It's an extraordinary level of responsibility and power that is elusive for most of us. It really is.
And the corollary to that in business, no matter what happens, and I try to teach everybody in my universe, again, this is super liberating. People get angry. At some point in life, someone in this room is going to get angry at somebody. And the worst thing I can do is deflect that anger or criticism. And one of the things that I say to people, no matter whatever your role is in the organization, Someone comes to you and goes, you guys screwed up. And the only thing that should come out of your mouth is, let me start by saying, I take full responsibility for that. Having said that, let's work through how we can, because and it's the same principle. Because now I've taken all your power away from your ability to escalate. Because if I go, hey, Jeff, I know you're pissed. I don't have anything to do with that. And I run the business. Is your anger going to go up or down? It's going to go through the roof. Right? Whereas 9 times out of 10, by taking full responsibility for everything in life, personal, professional, I've defanged you. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to go, I know you have nothing to do with this.
It's an amazing doorway to walk through. I mean, you realize that.
It's
like, uncommon.
And then the guy goes, I know you have nothing to do with that. But can you tell Susan? Sure. Let's call her together. And that lesson, that single lesson, I think is what it saves me a lot of problems.
Yeah. There's an old saying that what you're talking about reminds me of is one of the best ways to win a tug of war. Drop the rope. Exactly. Just fucking don't engage.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Take away all their energy.
Right. Exactly.
Without firing a shot.
I remember I was like 40, and it was in one of those transformational cycles. And this very dear friend of mine said to me something when I was complaining about that person or that thing over there.
Yep.
That's why I'm struggling, that thing, that person. And she said, they have nothing to do with it. And so I hadn't learned. I was about 40. It was a little slow. But, I just entered that doorway of, what do you mean? Like, there's a journey to finding out that there is a bald guy behind a curtain that's pushing the buttons and levers here.
Yeah.
And the bald guy is me.
Right.
There's a journey to get there, but it's the best freaking journey, right?
Yeah.
Because then you end up going, I just got to kind of find out what I'm doing to myself to create this outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I was talking to our CEO, my business partner, Rishi Bhatia, who's just a wonderful human being, and I've really enjoyed getting to know him. We were having a conversation the other day, and he said something, and we challenge each other a lot. And I think, it's kind of the old cliche, if 2 people in business agree on everything, one of them is unnecessary.
That's great. That's a great saying.
And I do believe that. And he and I, we have the same goals and ambitions, and a lot of times we come to them from different places. And so we were having this conversation, and I said, man, without getting into the details, and at the end he goes, algorithm updated. Thank you.
Took it on. Yeah.
But I love that statement. Algorithm updated. Won't happen again. And, and it wasn't like anything super profound, but those are the kind of people that you want to be around. They're like, and what I love about him too, after every situation we go through, doesn't matter who's in the room, he'll say, what are the learnings from this?
Wow.
He'll put anybody, a salesperson, client success, what are the learnings from this?
Wow. After action report.
Right away.
Yeah. Right away.
Right away.
Wow.
And I think my personality does well in that, because number one, I always want to know where I stand.
Right.
Don't fucking head fake me and just tell me where I stand. I don't care. And so I love that sense of transparency, but I also I still remain a teachable human.
To that
and if
point,
I can learn, cool.
To that point, you're describing a relationship, an interaction between you and Rishi. And one of the things that I find that's most elusive to entrepreneurs or business founders is this. They think it's all on them, and they think they have to know everything, solve everything, and shoulder everything. And I've lived that life. I think most men have, because that's how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to have all the answers and fix everything. And it's a disaster. The numbers of bodies and destroyed relationships and opportunities just litter the pathway. And at some point, one of the opportunities for us is to realize we need a small handful of people that love us and that we love, that we got to talk to, because then we hear, frankly, 75% of the shit in our head comes out just by talking to somebody that we really care about and that care about us.
Yep.
And your outcomes are massively better just from the interaction.
Way better. And while each of us have an incredible sense of personal responsibility, what I love from Rishi is, through conversation, there's a saying I love, and it says, people are more easily convinced by ideas that they arrive at themselves.
There you go.
Self-discovery.
Fantastic.
And where I'm really enjoying my relationship with Rishi is he does a really nice job of helping me come to discovery through conversation and questions.
Right.
He doesn't say, hey, and there's many things I've done where he could have said, hey, buddy. He doesn't do that. So help me. Everything starts with, well, walk me through your thinking here.
I love it. That's his MIT brain.
That's his MIT brain.
Yeah.
Walk me through
Engineer thinking.
It is. And
It's
like,
fantastic.
there's a logical element to this. And what's interesting is as I get to know him more and more as a person, an amazing human, is he processes things through that very logical, linear lens most of the time. And he knows that I process things through a more relationship and emotional lens, right? Well, so when we're thinking about how to negotiate certain things, I'm thinking about what's going through this guy's head. And he's thinking, well, what's the right move? What's the deal structure? What's the, and I'm more like, well, how can I just get him off his spot a little bit, or whatever the case is. And we'll have funny stories. And he's like, I've never seen someone who can get people's heads so fast. Like, that's all I've done my whole life. When you're just doing deals your whole life, right, you become a deal maker. And while he's a genius when it comes to deal making, the emotional aspect of it, he's like, I don't get it.
Right.
Why doesn't the guy just tell me what he wants?
Right. And that's why he has
We don't do that.
That's why
we got to figure it out.
That's why you have you. So did that relationship start the way you described, that you have this profound personal connection and let's figure a way to do business together?
Absolutely hysterical that you asked that question. So the way that I met Rishi was at the time, I was a president and co-founder of a company called Astonish Results. And we provided digital marketing services and software for the insurance industry. Well, we did a private equity transaction. We didn't sell the whole thing, but it was a private equity transaction. They brought in Rishi as their CTO, which is very common in private equity. They bring in their hired CMO, CTO. And Rishi and historically, I don't like my former business partner, Adam, would keep me away from engineers. He's like, you don't speak their love language. They don't speak yours. Stay away. And they're not emotional people primarily. They're very logical and not to paint with a, broad brush, but for the most part. And so Rishi and I met and we didn't even talk about business. We talked about where he grew up and why he does the things that he was doing, his aspirations to open an orphanage, which he has since made many investments in orphanages in India and beyond. And we would talk about that, like what he was going to do when it was all said and done. And nothing. I don't know that I've ever talked about technology with Rishi ever. And he was our CTO. And we got close. And the business sold and, we went our own separate ways. But again, that's a relationship where he called me. I was pretty convinced I wasn't going to do anymore this startup work. It's your life, and it was kind of like, I don't know if you remember the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson.
Oh yeah, yeah.
When he ceremoniously takes off his guns and he puts them in a box. I'll never forget that. I feel like I had taken off my ceremonious startup guns and put them in a box, and Rishi called me after not speaking for years, and he was pinging me on LinkedIn, and then he finally calls me. He's like, "Hey, what's up, man? I've been pinging you for 2 weeks." And I said, "What's going on?" And of course, your brain goes to how much, what's the project, and it wasn't that at all. He told me he had a vision and a mission, and the end game was to provide more access to justice for those who are denied it. And he explained his reasons why. And he said, but like anything, we're going to need some money. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the legal industry with AI. And then we're going to use that for good to give people more access to justice, make the legal system more understandable. And because even in he's from India. So even our justice system is so screwed up. He's like, now go think what it's like. He goes, and we have the best one. So it's not just national, it's personal for him,
Mm.
right? People get denied access to quality counsel all over the U.S. and all over the world. And he said, I want to change that. I really want to change that.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, man, so what are you thinking? He's like, yeah, so you want to do this? I'm like, no.
Not my
But they
thing.
talked about asking Jesus if he wanted that. No, actually, I don't want to die on the cross. I want to pass this cup to somebody else. And we talked about it a little bit. I said, what does that look like? And literally, he pulled me out of an entire existence. And within 2 weeks, I had my gun belt back out, had my new computer, and we went to work. And I'm excited. I haven't taken a day off in 6 months, and I don't even realize it. It's just like, and the other thing is, in this relationship, you can tell it's a lot of stress. Everything is. There's no way to sugarcoat that. But we talk like Saturday, 10 times on Saturday, 10 times on Sunday. It's just a continuum of progress. And we're at that stage in the business where every day you can double what you did in the last 3 months. Like it gets, it's getting exponentially better day by day. And it's invigorating. And then even just to look now at the people in the business that put faith and time and to have de-risked the business to this point where there's really no silver bullet, knock on wood, that could kill us, and in 6 months, just look back and reflect on that. It's amazing. It's amazing. And, there's no quit in that guy. And it's the first time I've been in a business relationship where I'm like, I don't know if I can keep up with this guy.
That's
I
a
don't
lot
know.
for somebody like
And I'm
you
like,
to say.
I'm open 24/7.
You're energizing, buddy. Yeah.
I'm like, this guy's got energy. And
Wow.
the whole thing, it's cool. And to go one more lap around the sun, I swear I'll never do, but I'm loving it again. I'm so grateful that I listened to him. I'm so grateful that I listened to my heart. And I'm so grateful that I connected with him at Astonish. And it's funny because all the reasons that I'm doing this those seeds were planted 12 years ago.
Mm.
When we're talking about orphanages. Because if Rishi had not been that and called me up and said, hey, I want to go create $1 billion company. I want to get a yacht. I want to. I'm like, that's cool. That's noble. And I'm not poo-pooing people who want. I love that. By the way, I hope I get a yacht out of this. And but if he had called me with that approach, I would say I'm good, But I knew he was telling the truth in his heart. He's like, oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to change this industry.
So what got you off the dock? Because I know you were sitting at the end of a dock for a number of months after your last exit.
2 years.
What about the conversation with Rishi had you say, I'm in?
So this will sound crazy, and probably anyone who watches this will be like, how can that be true? I think a lot about what I want my legacy to be, right? And I also, at 57 years old, my kids are working so hard, and I feel like, there's a biblical saying that God doesn't judge us by what we did. God judges us by what we did compared to what we were capable of doing.
Love it. Love it.
And I thought to myself, you're sitting on your hands, and, you still have a lot to add financially and otherwise. Your kids are still looking up at you and as a source of motivation, right? And, paddling around in my kayak and, it didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. I'm like, I have a lot to give, right? And my wife is someone who would never, hey, 33 years, whatever you want to do. But I also want her to be like, look at me with that incredible sense of pride. Like, that's Timmy. That's my husband, and that stuff. I want my kids to be psyched. I want my wife to be psyched. I want our employees to be psyched. And when you see a situation where you can go and make all that happen, you feel like you got a better than 50% chance of making that happen. I think sitting on your hands is kind of like a big fuck you to the universe. And then only bad things come out of those situations. So Is it a lot? Yeah, it's a lot, but compared to what? Because really the struggle is in your brain, right? So if you're sitting at the dock and looking at the boat and the water, and now you've done that for 3 months in a row, the conversations start changing from "this is beautiful" to, you know,
It's solitary confinement.
and
One of my mentors a long time ago said, it's a bad neighborhood and I'm the only one who lives there.
yeah,
You just have thoughts and
that
feelings. No thanks.
everything changed.
Yeah.
And then there's another. My former partner Adam Grade told me something once. And Adam is a prolific entrepreneur, really smart guy, makes a lot of money, and has bought a lot of things, a lot of things. And one of the lessons he told me, I'll never forget. He's like, just remember, familiar beauty fades fast. Like that little shiny thing that you want to go spend 100 grand on, 200 grand, a million, whatever. In 6 months from now, more often than not, it'll be a burden.
It's funny how life has a way of knocking us on our ass to remind us of this, that you're still here and there's still more and there's still a reason and there's still a purpose.
Yep.
It's amazing because people talk about it usually in more tragic scenarios, like, I got cancer and then I went through a resurrection cycle and I realigned with the universe and God, and now I'm here and I really appreciate every moment more so. And that's a more familiar story because we're always, I think as human beings, we're always forgetting and remembering. Yeah. And it's the journey that leads us into becoming and remembering that we can be the hero in our own story. The difference is context.
Yeah.
That the context gets broader. When we're young, it's about me and what I can be. And when we're older and we get a little bit older, it's about impact. And now it's about legacy for you. So the landscape changes and the degree of impact changes. It's not just, when you're young, it is about becoming and being good enough and being capable and being very ego driven. And that's normal. And then at some point, it's about my kids. It's about my wife. It's about my employees. It's about law. It's about human beings seeking justice. It becomes something bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we end up being drawn by, being compelled by, and serving a much bigger landscape the longer we stay in this game of life.
Yeah, we do. And it's funny how, like you said, and I always tell people you're dead on. People say the things you think about at 20 are very different than what you think about 30, 40, 50. And there are some life circumstances that will definitely throw you off your path from time to time. And but what I'm trying to do now, and I haven't been good at it, is to try to stick to the true who I am. And to your point, do the things I know that I'm good at, that are the best use of my time and talent, and does the best for, and don't get me wrong, I am a greedy little pig when it comes. So I joke about that, but it's like, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing for money. And there's the element that I don't want that to be lost on your friends who watch this. I would love to go make as much money as I can. No, it's not your business what I do with that money, because my ambition with that money may be very different than yours. If I want to give it away to an orphanage or buy a jet. And in the law, it's funny, I say, when people ask me, what do I do as it relates to faster outcomes? And I say, well, my goal is very simple. I want to give lawyers more time to do the things they love. If that's smash their competition, great.
That's huge.
If that's get home a little early to help with bedtime, that's noble too.
That's huge. I hadn't seen until you just said that, is our connection in that zone. I started this law firm because I wanted to show lawyers what it looks like to be a happy lawyer. That's honestly what I wanted to do.
Trust me.
I wanted to, my legacy and my gift was I learned how to be a happy human being who's also a lawyer.
Yeah.
And that was a process, and it was full of challenges and terrain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So having learned that, what it takes to be a happy human being who's also a lawyer, so therefore a happy lawyer, I wanted to invite people along with me on that journey. And I wanted to show clients this is what it can be like to interact with lawyers that are happy.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that there's a connection between us as it relates to faster outcomes, because I didn't even know the origin story until now.
That's my whole thing. It's interesting. So we recently just partnered with one of the largest personal injury lawyers probably in the country, and but certainly the biggest in. He's a big TV presence, and I've known this. Another guy I've known for 25 years, and just stayed in touch through the years, and finally reached out to him and said, "This is what we're doing," and greatest conversations in the world. Of course, he's a pit bull, and he fought like a pit bull through. We created a really cool partnership together that I'm super proud of, which included investment, time, consulting, and he's a tough guy. But what's funny, that's another person that I met 25 years ago. We connected and hadn't talked in 10 years, called him out of the blue and said, here's what we're doing, man. And what's cool is he knows so much about the law and so much about the economics, specifically around personal injury. What he taught me yesterday about what we're bringing to law was like, we were doing really good at 10%. And he's like, do you understand if you do this the way it should be done, which we're already on the path to do? He's like, it's game over. He's like, and we got to stop talking about transactional pricing and all this stuff. He's like, we're going to transform. And even just, small things like, a personal injury lawyer, he's trying to not a small thing. He's trying to maximize the value of a case and how to get AI to encourage the lawyer to think about certain things that the average lawyer wouldn't think about. And he's like, once this is done, the outcomes are going to be outrageous. He's like, and there's going to be displacement. Like people, there's always that side of the business that all things become more efficient eventually. But when you're working on contingency, efficiency is your friend, right?
Right.
And so it was just interesting that here comes this other person that's been in my life forever. We end up finally doing business, and it's like he taught me more in 2 hours than I could figure out on my own. I was bumping into stuff. I was literally fucking bumping into walls. I told him yesterday, I said, I was bumping into walls, dude. Like what you're telling me now. And we went. And so I was just so grateful. And then even like the folks down in Dallas, Texas, colleagues of yours, hadn't talked to them in 4 years, said, hey, this is what I'm doing. What we've learned from them. Right? And
Yeah.
they haven't touched AI. They're just like, hey, all right, Tim's doing it. Sure. Well, like literally what we're learning from them. And again, formed on relationships and just people that you connect with. And so I'm actually reflecting on this and just in such humility that, you do things in life and you don't do them with intention at the time. You're like, this is just the right thing to do. Let me help you. 9 times out of 10 conversations are, how can I help you? Let me help you. And all the things that I did with them and never said, hey, I want money for that. It was just, you help people. They were helping me. I was helping them. And it's pretty cool. And those become the most powerful relationships in the world. And so where I'm blessed and fortunate is that, like you said, I find my job in life is to partner with people like Rishi who have bold visions and missions that are noble and important and powerful, and do my best to support that. That's how I become mission-based. I see one and I go, I can follow that guy. And then I take on the persona of the counselor. I'm the counselor, right? I'm the guy who, when the time is right, stops that person from acting on their worst impulses.
And that's the dynamic between you and Rishi, and you're the recipient of it as well as the beneficiary of it.
What it does is it tempers my desire to do dumb shit.
Yeah, right.
It's like, well, we got to calm down. And visionaries like I've worked with many people, and not at the level that Rishi's at, but people who are visionary, they can be mercurial, right? And
Oh, yeah.
they're so in it. And he objectively stands back on things and says, "Can I ask you a question about a couple things?"
And you know where he's taking you. He's like, let me smack you up the side of the head, but in a remarkably smart way.
100%.
Yeah.
And so,
let me save you from yourself.
Yeah. And so, the theme of disruptors are a little different.
Yeah.
It's a small percentage of the population. They think differently, and they have wildly different motivations for the things that they do. But I couldn't. I was talking with a friend last night. I won't say the name on camera, but experiences that she's going through in life. I said, "You're really a startup girl. You know that, right?" And she's like, I really am a startup girl, right? She likes the chaos. She likes the wins. Like in startups, it's not like, oh, I got a raise. Getting a raise is freaking awesome. It's like, holy shit, this company was worth 10 million yesterday. Now it's worth 40. And that's our money. Like,
yeah.
That's like, it's life-changing shit, And now the flip side of that is when it goes wrong, is people, when people ask me, hey, can I invest in this business? And I said, well, if they're thinking this is like investing in Coke or Pepsi, I'm like, Coke stock will go down and that'll suck. If we make a mistake,
game over.
You're not.
It was a hell of a journey. Hell of a journey. We get a great story.
Yeah. We don't do refunds.
Right. Just so right.
And so there's the element of that. Like I have that streak that I definitely am fueled by. This could go wrong, and some people like that. Now you live in a high state of active cortisol, and you got to mitigate that the best you can. But I couldn't do anything else. I was done. My just kind of quick story as it relates to how I became a disrupting person, I believe, was my life got disrupted. So I worked for 13 years at a federal savings bank. And I started as a telemarketer, became a loan officer, then became person managing 42 loan officers, then became the corporate trainer, then became, integrated in marketing, the whole thing. The guy who owned the bank treated me like a son, although we had a lot of age difference. And I was literally working 10 to 9 most days. And then we started working West Coast hours. So I worked 10 to 11. Then I locked up the bank at 11. I had a wife and 3 kids, little kids, and loved it. I never worked so hard in my life. I treated every penny that went through that place like my own and fought like hell for him and he appreciated it and he treated me very well, but he had 4 boys. And they were all a little different. The third son, who's now still very successful, but at the time, came to the bank, did a little training, went to Yale, got his MBA, came back as president at 24 years old, and told his father point blank, him or me, about me.
Wow.
And for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I controlled the salespeople. I controlled pretty much everything. And he literally said, the fact that you spend all this time with my father, I can't take it. It drives me nuts. I'm like, well, here's the thing. If I don't go find your father in the first 10 minutes while I'm here, he's coming to find me. Right. And this guy was so awesome. So he's worth well over $100 million. The bank was worth a couple $100 million. He would go desk to desk 3 times a week and go through individual loan officers' files. Where's the appraisal? Show me the W-2s. Why don't you have the title search back? And then call the vendors together. He's like, well, let's call the guy right now. Like this guy was, and I loved it. And then I was the guy who sat in the little rolling chair next to him, going desk to desk with him. He go, Timmy, take this file, And so he came to me and he said, hey, listen, my oldest son's name is Chad. And he said, it's like you and Chad, Tim. I'm sorry. Oh, wow. And
13 years?
13 years. I was 30, 32, 33. And I had, my wife was home, no job. She'd take care of the kids. All my kids, doing their thing. I had a mortgage. My kids are in private school and was making good money. Had no resume. I was like, fuck. And so I got aggressive back And I signed a 1-year non-compete. And the first thing I did was we rented a 32-foot RV and spent 35 days traveling the country. Never camped in my life. Me and my wife, my 3 kids, traveled 9,000 miles, every national park you can imagine. And my wife and I reconnected because if you're working 60, 70 hours a week, there's just natural. I work Saturday, like physically went to the bank on Saturday, sometimes Sunday afternoon. And we connected. My kids were like amazing. And it was so cool being on the road because it didn't matter if you had $1 or $1 million or $50 million, whatever. It was just, oh, where were you yesterday? Where are you going tomorrow? That was it. That was the level of connection.
Mm.
And I did a lot of thinking. I started journaling for the first time. And this guy changed my life. I could almost cry. So we were at a campground in New Mexico, and they had a pancake breakfast. And Bonnie's like, oh, let's go. That's my wife. Let's go to the pancake breakfast. And it's like pancakes. It's a freaking desert. It's sand. This is gross. Everything about this is gross. And I was still in that, get that shit off me, And so we go down to the pancake breakfast, and this guy comes. He's this tall guy. He's like 6'5", high white socks and those geriatric shoes in his 70s. And he said, oh, it's so great to see your family together. He said, you don't see a lot of families having lunch or dinner together anymore, let alone at a campground. You must be very proud. So I just started talking to this guy, and something I would never do. In my previous life, I would have been like, dude, you do you, I'll do me. And so we got into this really deep conversation. The kids were getting antsy, and Bonnie's like, hey, you told the kids they could go over to that little arcade. She goes, I'll take them. You guys stay and talk. So I shared my story that I had just gone through out of nowhere with a total stranger. I told him how I'd lost my job, and I got teary-eyed. Oh, before that, he goes, you know who Mr. Rogers is? I said, of course, I know Mr. Rogers. I don't know if you remember Mr. Rogers, but Mr. Rogers had his own show. He was a Presbyterian minister. A lot of people didn't know that. And many of those episodes had religious principles woven into them. And so we got into that a little bit. And then he stood up. He said, can I hug you? And so I stood there, and he said, can I pray for you? I said, yeah. And he said, God bless this man. And he said, he's been through a lot of hurt, and help him to release his anger, help him. I cried together. Guy gave me a hug, and he left. And I never felt more euphoric in my entire life. I'd never felt more euphoric. And I went back into the RV, and I said, hon, she loved driving the RV. I'm like, you drive. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, wow. And I journaled, if God could help me, and if I could do it, I'm never getting another job. I'm never putting my fate in somebody else's hands, fucking ever again. Ever.
Was that part of your thought process, or how you navigated before then, that conversation or relationship to God? Was that in your wheelhouse at that age?
More so than it is now. My relationship with faith has stayed the same. My relationship with organized religion has probably faded a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I would consider myself a spiritual being. And
even then,
I was very much a spiritual being. And I was like, I'm just not. So I turned what was anger. I had this bitterness in me. I was very angry, and I was very hurt. And I was directing. See, that was a time in my life, Jeff, where I was saying, this happened to me because of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
because you're 32.
Right. I had to redirect that to, no, you just got liberated, my friend.
Yeah.
You caught a break. And then, and as fate would have it, I had a friend in my life at the time who was just getting ready to sell his first business for $100 million. And he said, hey, I was in the mortgage business at the time, just leaving it. And he said, hey, let's do a startup. Let's do digital marketing and software for mortgage brokers and banks. And that's how we ended up at Astonish. And so I literally got liberated through being fired.
And the first part of that, phase one, is I'm victimized by this guy.
Yeah. Victimized.
And then 6 months later, it's a gift.
It's a gift. It's a gift.
That's a pattern.
And
That's an amazing pattern.
And then I met, it's funny, when this man went to retire, I met the son who said him or me, and he came up to me and he said, you were the bigger man than me at the time. He goes, and I was small. He runs the place now, he's very successful. And he said, I own that. I said, hey, it's nothing you can do about it now, but thank you. And so, yeah, you kind of look at different things that happen in life, and you just got to keep going forward. You can't get stuck.
It's and it's our story as human beings,
Yeah.
And there's a show on TV that I love called Forged in Fire. I used to watch it all the time. And these blacksmiths get a bunch of shit to hammer into this amazing tool. And the one who develops the most amazing tool in a very time-limited fashion that functions the best wins, and they get whatever, the money. And of course, I'm watching it for years. And then I'm driving on 95, and like a lot of our awarenesses and inexplicable insights happen like in two places for most of us: bathroom and in the car.
Yeah.
And I'm driving, and it's like, oh my God, that's kind of how life is. It just beats the shit out of us.
Yeah.
And we feel victimized by it. We feel hurt by it. And we stay in the game. And then what happens? We realize it made us this incredible freaking tool.
Yeah.
We have capacity that we didn't have before. And it was maybe, if you get there, or if you have that moment, oh, it's a gift.
Yeah.
What? But I've only had to see that like a million times before I get it.
As you will probably go through it.
And I'm like, oh, that's a thing. And it's like my thing. And it's a way to appreciate life and how I make meaning out of, what is a very ordinary human experience, but not an ordinary interpretation of the experience.
No, but you're dogmatic. You don't give up easy.
No.
And I think that eludes a lot of people. Very much it escapes people that just got to hang in there. And it's so funny. So for the 13 years that I worked at the bank, doesn't matter what my title was, basically my little cube that I had never changed. I never got a desk. I never got an office. I was attached to other salespeople, and maybe a picture or two of my wife. I had the most sparse little 4-foot cube, and I had one picture. I was just talking to my oldest son about this the other day. I had one picture it was crayon. So it was a picture out of a coloring book, and it was colored in. And it's a very iconic picture. And it's of a stork with a frog in his mouth. And the frog has his arms around the stork's neck. And so the stork's trying to eat him. The frog's saying, I'm not letting go. And it says, never give up. That's the only picture I had at my desk.
It's a funny thing, but when you look at people that are successful in anything, health, relationships, money, life, business, whatever it is, one of the essential ingredients, and there aren't many of them.
Yeah.
One of them, don't fucking stop.
Yeah.
Don't fucking quit. I was on the phone with a very dear buddy of mine who's gone through a relationship blip.
Yep.
And I'm like, dude, what did you think it was going to be? Smooth?
Yeah.
Clear? Simple? No, it's supposed to be challenging because you got shit to learn and you got ghosts to release, and so does she, and it's normal. It's just fucking human. Nobody likes to talk about the dark side of it or the dark arts of life, but that's there and that happens. And it's amazing to me that the most challenging moments are one click off of the most amazing insight transformation that's available if I just hang with it.
Yep.
Hang with it. And it seems like the value of the lesson and the gift in the moment is proportional to the pain and the challenge and the degree to which I feel like fucking quitting or running.
Right.
And if it's acute, then I know fucking gold right there. I just got to wait for it, and I got to hang with it, and I got to get comfortable being uncomfortable and just stay with it.
Yeah. I think the most profound thing you just said was you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That is not for a lot of people. It's just not.
No, we go on fight or flight immediately.
Like if I just stay here uncomfortable longer than that guy's willing to do it,
Right.
then
You become this icon in life, in business, in law, in tech, in whatever, in part because you didn't fucking quit.
right.
You're the last man standing. It's like there was this mentor of mine, Bob, fantastic guy, heart surgeon, shaman. And he told me, he said his dad told him how you win marathons. He did Ironman, and he was in his 70s doing Ironman. He's a monster of a human being. And he said his dad gave him this piece of advice. Just keep doing it after everybody quits.
Yeah.
But it was a seminal moment for me in life when I realized through pattern recognition and data dump that when people fail, it's not failing.
Yeah.
They usually just quit and they blame that thing and that person over there. And it's just convenient. And it takes the weight off of them to say, I didn't want to fucking hang with it.
Yeah.
I just wanted out of the suffering. I wanted out of the pain. So fail? No, I think most of us, when we fail, the truth is, if we dial it back, it's I decided to quit. It may not be the wrong decision, but let's call it what it is.
No.
I decided to quit.
So it reminds me of a story. There was a woman, she swam, and I'm not going to get the name right, you might know. She swam the English Channel, and
Naiad.
She tried to swim from the mainland to Catalina in California. And it was an easier swim than ones that she had accomplished before. And so they got the boat and she's swimming and it was foggy, super foggy. And she quit. She didn't finish. She thought she stamina-wise, she thought she had it, current, tide, whatever. She thought she was all set. And when they asked her, they said, what happened? And she said, I couldn't see the land. She said, if I could have seen it, I could have kept going.
Mm-hmm.
But once the fog rolled in and she couldn't see the end game, and I think that happens a lot. If you can't visualize the end game,
it's hard to stay in.
It's really hard. And startups are, people, it's funny, we were talking with lawyers the other day about strategic planning, and I was sitting at this round table, and they said, we do it quarterly, annually, and everybody had their own strategy. I said, well, tech startups are a little different. We begin with the end in mind. So you start the business and you go, and maybe that's not Rishi's ambition this time. He's got broader ambitions. But in the past, we would start the business and go, okay, how do we get out? Like today, before we write the check and start blood, sweat, treasure, how do we get the hell out of this thing? Who's going to buy this from us? And then let's manage to that. And so when you do that, now you create the boogeyman. So remember, as a startup person, the hardest thing is managing yourself, right? Who's going to tell me what the fuck to do? No offense. I have to manage myself. And the only way I can manage myself is by having a crystal clear visualization of what the end looks like.
Yeah.
What does Catalina Island look like? And then keep that so crystal clear. And I tell people, the more specific you can be about what done looks like, what the color of your house is, what your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, what kind of car do you drive, what do you have in the bank, with the love that you feel, the adoration and all that. I said, the more you can cling to that, that's how you don't quit.
And on a personal level, it seems to translate as well, because when you've been in survival mode, like most of us are for the first part of our adulthood,
100%.
And if you're fortunate, blessed enough to not need to work, it becomes very difficult, challenging in moments to stay in the game because you lose sight of land. Like, why am I doing this? So your purpose has to change.
Yeah.
It has to change from this is what I need to do to something else.
Yep.
For most of us, most of the people who remain vibrant and look older and grayer and bolder, it becomes, your mission is different. I don't need to provide for my family. I don't need to provide for my kids. That part of life is over. So then what? Then what do you do? And you got to find it. You got to find the reason. And I think for most of us, it comes back to the foundational thing that makes us human beings in the first place. We want to help people.
Yeah.
We want to have an impact. But now I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm capable of having a bigger impact. I want to make all my employees wealthy.
Yeah.
I want to change law. I want to make the world a better place. And so we return to the just most fundamental thing is that I think is innate in most human beings, which is I got to help someone. I don't know why, but I know how it makes me feel. And I never want to live a life where I don't get out of bed needing to do that today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love you.
I love you too, man.